place of youth when it comes to governance and how to find it and how to assert ourselves a little bit better. But then there's so many things that are sometimes intertwined that I wonder, if we deal with one thing, are we dealing with the other, or is it just issues upon issues upon issues? And two of those are climate justice and economic justice. I know people don't tend to think that they are related, but they really are. Do you think that dealing with one deals with the other in some form, or they're separate issues?
Dealing with one deals with the other. And the reason why dealing with one deals with the other is because the relationship between economic justice and climate justice is that the opponent is the same. The opponents in economic justice and climate justice are capitalists.
Yes.
People who put profit before people. Yes. They put profit before development. They put profit before everything else, including sustainability. The proponents of economic injustices and climate injustices are neoliberalists, people who have inherited the oppression that colonialists continue to do in Africa and continue to do it until today. When I talk about neoliberalism, I'm talking about those people who believe it's a free market for all. When we have poor women and youth who do not have money to buy from the market, they are hoping that we are going to participate in. When I talk about neoliberalism, I'm talking about the people who believe it is a willing buyer, willing seller, when the seller does not have an option but to sell their land so that they can pay school fees, when land is supposed to be an asset you keep as a source of livelihood. And so as we look at it, you realize that we have very many opponents who have precipitated our economies into economic injustices, and they are also responsible for the climate injustices that have resulted.
Sure.
Colonization and continued colonization, after which is also known as neo-colonization, is also a problem.
It is.
Some of the decisions we make about our environment, some of the decisions we make about our economies are not controlled by us. When you speak about certain things like the petrodollar, one of the things that happens to you is that there's a laser right at the center of your head. Immediately you mention such a thing. Because anybody who's going to challenge the use of the dollar to buy petrol becomes an enemy of the US to begin with. So you wouldn't know that the US is affecting you in those ways, but that is the continuation of colonialism.
Sisi bora tumeona series ya kutoka US, tunaona tuko sawa.
You see, so it's a fundamental problem. Who we choose as a leader in many countries in Africa is influenced by people from outside. That, of course, affects how our economies are managed. I don't know whether you took note of the coup in Gabon. And so the story behind Ali Bongo is that he has huge support from France.
He does.
His position in that country has been solidified by the support he gets from France. But France is constantly benefiting from 14 economies in Africa where they collect colonial tax until today, long after
I've
leaving.
always found that, by the way.
So that's not independence, really.
The amount of resources they're collecting from that country are sufficient to give those countries stability. All of those 14 countries are considered poor countries, and yet they're paying for, welfare states in France. They're paying for comfort in France. It is problematic. And for us, this is why we are actually we were actually keen on setting up the ULID initiative. And the ULID program is basically a program to bring young people to consider governance issues. And it started off in 2017 as just a program that considers governance issues and encourages young people to participate in politics. At the time, we just wanted young people at the center of decision making. Obviously, when we gathered young people from the East Africa community, the young people told us, you cannot be asking us to talk about politics and we do not have money. So if you're going to talk about politics, let's also have a conversation about business. So starting 2019, we started having a youth and business component of this summit. And so we started running it for 2 days. By the time South Sudan was joining the East Africa community, they were telling us, you people want to talk about politics and business, but for us, if there's no peace, we have no business engaging in politics and business. And so we then took up a peace conversation. And so ideally what ULID is about is that it's basically a 5-day event where we spend the first day discussing youth and politics. And what happens is that the first session is a session that is run by national youth councils from the 7 member countries now, because DRC recently joined. And these national youth councils then, have discussions about politics and how they can be able to hold leaders accountable, but also participate actively. Day 2 is the day of business, and that was our day yesterday. We discussed the future of work. We discussed what Generation Z, millennials now want to see in the workplace. We discuss technology, the fourth industrial revolution, and of course we discuss the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is a key driver of business across the borders. Day 3, which is today, is peace and security, and we focus on the UN Security Council Resolution 2250, which is also the resolution on youth, peace and security, and how youth contribute to peace and security. The afternoon of day 3 is about young women and their participation in leadership, and we bring in the climate conversation into
Stella,
that
we beg to end right now, but we know that we can actually find you on social media. How best can we get you on social media?
You can find us at One Young Africa, and also follow the hashtag YouLead23, and you will get all the information. We have links on Zoom that any young person who wants to join the conversation can join.
Thank you so much for your contributions. We feel like we should have like 2 days, 3 days, just have a conversation with you, just to get a little bit of more knowledge on what Africa and the youth are actually going through, to make sure that we have a better setup for governance, especially for the youth and women.
We're back in the